Thank you, Mayor Post. I have a disclosure of indirect pecuniary interest. I believe the item is 12.2.2.2, and it is for the Bethel Hospice portion. My spouse is on the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prendergast. Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I also have a conflict. It's during the grant process discussions, and I'm a member of the Optimist Club, so I don't know if you can separate that or if I'll just leave during the Optimist portion, but I can't vote on that.
Thank you. I will separate both the Bethel portions and the Optimist portions from the grants. Was there any other disclosures? Seeing none, there is a recommendation that a closed meeting of council be held pursuant to Section 239, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act for the purposes of considering the following subject matters. We have closed council minutes from the 13th of April, closed council minutes from our special meeting of council on April 27th, and the Access Orangeville closed meeting minutes from May 14th, which is personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Can I have a motion to go into closed, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried. We're now in closed session. We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. Tonight's meeting is being aired on public television and/or streamed live and may be saved for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *9 to raise their hand to indicate their intention to speak and to dial *6 to mute and unmute when called upon during the appropriate portions of the meeting. Before our open session, we did have a closed session, and there is a rise in report. The recommendation is that the April 13th, 2026 closed council meeting minutes be approved, and that the April 27th, 2026 special council closed minutes be approved, and that the Access Orangeville closed meeting minutes from May 14th, 2026 be received, and that council endorse Access Orangeville's selection of recipients for the 2026 Accessibility Champion Awards. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens, seconded by Councillor Prendergast. All in favor? And that is carried. We do have minutes from the May 11th council meeting that we are looking to have approved. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Sherwood. Any questions or comments? All in favor? And that is carried. We'll now move into the open forum portion where Orangeville residents will have the opportunity to present their views or pose their questions to council on any subject within council's jurisdiction for a maximum time of 3 minutes, providing they have not previously addressed the same topic before council within the last 3 months. If there is anyone joining via telephone, you're reminded to press *9 to indicate your intention to speak. And once called upon, press *6 to mute and unmute. Madam Clerk, was there anybody online? No? Was there anybody in the gallery who wished to speak at open forum? Yeah, come on up to the podium, please. And we just need your name and address for the record.
Gary Marchand, 9 Colborne Crescent.
Just let's get your mic on and just a reminder, you'll have 3 minutes. And if you could just do your name and address again for the record with the mic on.
My name is Gary Marchand. I live at 9 Colborne Crescent. I would ask honorably that the mayor consider if I can have 5 minutes instead of 3 with the council's approval, as I don't want to rush through what I'd have to say.
Council, a mover and a seconder. Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Thank you. You'll have up to 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. I want to make an honorable motion of 2 people who have made a significant contribution to our wonderful town, especially during the Volunteer Appreciation Month. As required by the town of Orangeville, they are participating in a specific agency. They have not representing a specific agency or delegation, but are their dedication to a cause for safe, inclusive, accessible environment for all of us participants cannot go unnoticed and celebrated. I ask that everyone would honor with me Tamira Lambier and Rick Ugali. Close enough? Sorry. 2 very hardworking local community assets that regularly attend council meetings twice monthly and speak very important decisions on our behalf. Both persons also regularly attend and advocate strongly at the Town of Orangeville's Accessibility Committee every month. Although they are not always received at council with respect and dignity, deserving to all of us, they are due for keeping safety and accessibility standards top of mind. For this council and accountability also, please consider next time you need accessible parking and other services. Thank you and many others for their selfless commitment on our better community because they are concerned efforts. I personally want to thank them on behalf of the town of Orangeville for their consideration and volunteering participation and dedication, making our town more safe and inclusive for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time to be here tonight. I appreciate that. Was there any questions or comments from members of council? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to ask a question today or as part of open forum? Yep, come on up. And we'll need your name and address for the record. We'll get your mic on and we'll give you 3 minutes.
and I live at 3 Montgomery Boulevard. Sorry, I wrote some notes here just so that I meet the 3-minute threshold. So I'm here because I don't know who can help me. I live next to a drug house in a community school. There's a high school to the left of me, a rec center in front of me, and to the right, there's an elementary school. It's a very busy house. The police are well aware. Whenever I call them, they're very responsive. They always validate my concerns, saying that they know what's happening in the house, but yet here I am. I've called bylaw, I've called the fire marshal's office for various infractions. I make Crime Stoppers reports, and although all is great, and I'm sure there's things happening in the background, I'm here because someone has to be able to do something. I should feel safe in my own home. My daughter should feel safe. She's 2.5. There are used needles on the lawn. There are people smoking crack in the back, in the front. During the day as kids are walking by, I have knocked on windows, say, hey, take it to your house. You do what you need to do. But it doesn't have to be at 8 a.m. while kids are walking to school. And so although I know you don't have an answer for me, I did want to bring this to your attention because there has to be somebody that can do something. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. I just wanted to make a comment that it sounds like you've already done all the right things. You've contacted all the right people, and keep doing that. Both myself and the Deputy Mayor are part of the Police Services Board, and we'll make sure that it's discussed in an upcoming meeting as well. Councillor Stevens first, and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I live in your neighborhood, and I've seen posts on Facebook, and I know that Deputy Mayor Taylor reached out and suggested that someone come tonight, and I just want to say I'm glad you're here, and we are listening, and I'm sure Deputy Mayor Taylor is going to echo my comments, hopefully, and add some more. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Thank you very much for being here. I'm glad that you did come. It's important that people reach out. In anticipation of you or others being here, I wanted to make sure that I understood the facts. Unlike Councillor Stevens, I was not aware of the issue on Montgomery until it was brought out through social media. So social media is sometimes a challenging thing, but I think in this instance it was a good thing. I did phone the inspector ahead of the meeting because it was new to me and I wanted to make sure that I was fact-based. The answers that I could give you are frustrating, but should also make you feel good. And so that is with the Street Crimes Unit. The Street Crimes Unit, when I asked, I said I would like to have specific, I'll just wait a second here. When I asked, I wanted to have specific information about your situation. I felt silly that I even asked it because I knew what the answer was. And that is, why would we tell the bad guys when we're coming? Why would we tell the bad guys what we're doing? And I want you to know that the OPP have a great firm grasp on drug use in our town. They know all the spots, they know all the players, they're on these guys, and I can't tell you what they're doing. In other words, why is there a gap from your frustration to the very fact that you're here in front of us tonight? But they know. And at some point, they will get theirs. So I hear you, and the OPP hears you, and there's a process that needs to play out. And I don't know if that rationale helps you to understand, but I think it makes sense to me, and I hope it makes sense to others. It makes no sense to go publicly and tell them what they're going to do. But they know, and they're on it. Okay?
I'm glad you said that, Deputy Mayor, because ahead of this meeting, I did the same thing. I spoke to the inspector as well and got the same answer, that it's with the Street Crimes Division. They are aware of the address, and there's investigations happening. So yes, and other addresses, not just that one. There's a lot of work happening in town right now when it comes to drug use in the community, and the OPP are doing all the right things. So thank you again for being here. Go ahead. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and this was part of my discussion with the inspector tonight, I think because of social media, there's more awareness to issues that are happening in our town. I have been tuned into some things that will make your toes curl. They're upsetting, and there's people involved that your heart goes out to them as it's happening. But here's the simple truth. Crime in our town is down. The crime index in our town versus other towns our size is low. Orangeville is a very safe place to be. Yes, there's inconveniences. Yes, things make you very angry. But this is a safe place for everybody to be. And so we've got a few incidences that are happening, and I don't mean to downplay what's happening, but we can't get into a furor over what we perceive to be happening when it's not necessarily happening in the way that's described. All of those stats you can pull down yourself just through a simple Google search, so you can determine whether or not I'm telling the truth. But the crime index is down here, and we should feel good about where we live and what's going on. But there's key items that need to be gotten to, and one of them is yours.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, sorry, through you. I just wanted to thank you for coming today and sharing that very vulnerable story. I know what it's like to be in a community park. I grew up in the city and have to watch for needles before kids play. And I'm sad that Orangeville is turning into that kind of place. There are people using needles, intravenous drugs. And the reality is we need to be more diligent when our kids are playing. Check parks. There isn't sand anymore. And I'm sorry this is happening on your front lawn, but it sounds like the town is doing what they can, and the OPP is doing everything that they can. But if anyone else is dealing with these kind of experiences, please come forward. You don't need to feel helpless, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prendergast. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to make a comment during open forum? Come on up. Name and address for the record, and a reminder you've got 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Michelle Hartley. To the last speaker, I can only imagine going back to my days when my kids were 2.5, and if I had to rake through my grass to check for that, that sucks. That's probably what you need to hear. That sucks, and I'm sorry for you. And I do believe with all of my heart that our council and our town and our police are on it. And don't stop talking. Keep it up. This was step 1 of probably 50, and you're going to get there, and you matter. You're going to make a difference. For me, my kids are old. I'd be out there saying, "Get the f*** off my lawn, because here's my bat." I would be saying that. Okay. I live on Morgandale Crescent, and I'd like to chat about a very recent letter to the editor. I have spoken with Wendy Cook in the lobby, and this will not be a surprise. This letter to the editor was posted on Matthew Smith's Facebook blog, A Gentleman Running for Council. In the letter, Wendy wrote on May 21st, quote, "Both persons, and I admire Rick and Tammy, I do, and I value their community input, their sharing of insights. But on this letter, it said, although they are not always received at council with respect and dignity," and then brackets, "deserving of us all. I have not seen that, and that upset me, and that brought me here. I am a member of a committee with the town, and I have been spoken to rudely, not with respect, and that happens in the heat of the moment, but to publicize it with what I believe wholeheartedly, they are misinformed. And I would like to say, just to the council, thank you for that, what you've done. I often heckle at refs, and I later find out I was wrong. And I have heckled at council, and I found out I was wrong. And I look into it, and I try to grow. And if, what I said before, you're not part of, you're part of the problem if you're not part of the growth. And Wendy, I'm sorry that you were upset enough to write the letter, but please trust me that you didn't have all the information. Going forward, council, elections, it's not going to be about popularity. It's about community, making a difference, all being involved. We do have a great community, and I don't know how to say, because I've said it many times, look at the big picture. The world south of us is pretty nuts. We are so lucky here in Orangeville. And when we bicker about the small things, we're taking away from the great things. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Was there anybody else in the gallery who wished to ask a question during open forum? Okay, so we will move then into the public delegations. We will start with Arunas from Cry Not, the committee chair, and we'll get the presentation up for you and we'll get your mic on. And before Arunas starts, I'll just give a bit of a trigger warning that this is talking about human trafficking, abuse, and exploitation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am with Cry Not. Let me tell you what the acronym actually stands for. Cry Not is a group, just public citizens that formed a committee, and it stands for, C is for Compass Community Church, R is for Rotary Club of Orangeville, Y is for Youth, and O is for No, and T is for Trafficking, so Cry Not. This group was formulated quite a few years ago with one intent. And if you go to the next slide, our whole intent, trying to get to the next slide, thank you, is to have our community of Dufferin-Caledon free of safeguarding against human trafficking. For me, this is a true unknown. However, when you start looking at it, it becomes pretty challenging. Next slide, please. Human trafficking is exploitation of all genders. Gender doesn't matter. It's transported across country, and we are in an area that is close enough to the 401, which is a main traffic area. Next slide, please. And I'm going through these slides quickly, not because I want to, but because there's only a certain amount of time. And council, please go through this, and I'll give you more information later. So who's being trafficked? Mostly youth, mostly girls, marginalized people, and but it could be anyone. It could be of any race, color, creed, gender. It really doesn't matter. And it's challenging that way. Next slide, please. Caledon Dufferin Victim Services indicated kind of prior to 2020 that approximately 22 victims in our area happened annually. In 2024-25, the numbers rose to 35 victims. Next slide, please. Traffickers are usually known to their victim, which is also concerning. Each victim is worth around $280,000 a year to the trafficker. Next slide, please. We're a small rural municipality, and this is a target area, and that's what concerns us. And that's what we're all about. Next slide, please. There's a lot of information, and our presentations go into great detail on these four stages: luring, grooming, kind of manipulation, and then exploitation. Next slide, please. So what is Cry Not doing? As a committee, we're just a small group that tries to do what we can. We do presentations. In that presentation is a link to our presentation on a website, so you can go to it and it's approximately 20 minutes to half-hour presentation, and there's a lot of information there that you can gain out of this. We do presentations to school parent councils, service clubs, church groups, youth clubs, any group that is willing to listen and be concerned, because the more people that know about this, the better off we all will be. We also have gotten involved in social media, and this has been kind of maybe 1 year into it, and we've got 1,500 to around 2,000 followers, and it's starting to grow, which is great, but more needs to be done. So there's a Facebook link, there's an Instagram link, there's a website, that needs to be updated. Next slide, please. Thank you for council and making this awareness during the proclamation on February 22nd against human trafficking. Next slide, please. And what can everyone do? Everyone needs to do. Keep your family safe, make your neighborhood safe, and help spread the word. Next slide, please. And here's links. There's a lot of really good links there to information. We're funded by Compass Community Church and Rotary Club of Orangeville, but we need more money. I'm not here to ask you for money. I know budgets are tight, but if you had money, we'd take it. I'm happy to answer any questions. It's really information for council and the community.
Thank you so much for being here, Arunus. We really appreciate your presentation and all the work that you and your organization are doing. I do have a couple of questions. We will start with Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Kaunas, for being here. My connection is twofold. One, previously in my post-secondary career with Police Foundation students, also having had an opportunity to do some voice work for some of the original social media. What's more important is the message that's getting out. And Deputy Mayor Taylor, who sits as the chair on the police board, we know that the intersection of 9 and 10 is one of the most vulnerable area for human trafficking in the province. People don't believe it, but it is, in fact, data-driven. And I feel that it's absolutely imperative that we get the message out because it is under the radar. It is one of those things that when the vulnerable, in fact, are looking for a way out, they are, in fact, showing all kinds of opportunity to do so, but unfortunately, it is a very, very scary turnstile to go through. The last point I wanted to share, and you did mention about funding, what's coincidental, we are going to be talking about our community grant program, and so from a cycle perspective, this may be something that you'll have to connect with the municipality during the next process of that particular community grant application. But for those of us who are connected in some way, I feel that the community needs to know about this. And again, I know the relay to our OPP and the connection there is certainly well noted. But thank you for all that you're doing and getting the message out.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Stevens?
Yes, thank you very much for coming and thanks for sharing. It is truly sad that these things happen, in 2026. I know you're local. Have you approached the federal government to see if they would consider changing the laws that maybe more of a penalty be issued to those that are found guilty?
Arunus, we'll get your mic on. Yeah.
Great question. We've found a lot of organizations. One in particular on that page is the Joy Smith Foundation. Joy Smith, if you don't know, was an MP, federal MP, and she was the first person to actually pass legislation against human trafficking in the country. And there's more and more work happening that way. So there is activity. There's some things right now in the works for that. We're just a small group. I'd love to be able to, but there's only so much you can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You shut off your mic. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mayor Post, through you. Thank you for addressing this topic. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I know that we've had some representatives from Peel come in and talk about this because not a lot of people are aware, and it's predominantly young girls who meet an older boy online or in person, and then they get coerced into a bad situation. And I think it's really important that, again, that you're shedding light on this. And I was wondering if perhaps the town could assist advertising those resources, maybe in the bus stop or something, if you had a poster we could put up, or maybe in Alder or Tony Rose. So if any at-risk youth see that, and maybe they could reach out, if that was something your organization had. I'm not sure if that's allowed, but.
We'd love to partner with the town to do something like that, absolutely. That would be a great idea.
Ms. Savage, I'll leave that with you maybe. Okay, perfect. Wonderful. If there's no more questions from council, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you. No, unfortunately, we just have the one open forum section. Up next, we have our staff and consultant presentations. We do have our 2025 audited financial statements. We have Murray Short, who I believe is joining us online. There we go. Hi, Murray. Good to see you.
Yes, you as well. Thanks very much.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I will share my screen here. Should be popping up momentarily with the cover page of our presentation. Excellent. So thank you, Mayor Post, members of council, for the opportunity to present the 2025 audited financial statements for the town of Orangeville. As I have in the past, what I would propose to do is go through the presentation. It does cover the primary statements that are also included in the package for this council meeting. But if there are any questions on the statements that I don't cover that aren't part of the PowerPoint presentation, please feel free to ask about those as well, and I will do my best to address them. So with that said, just a bit of an agenda. I won't read it out, but just to cover the things that we cover as part of the culmination of our audit. First off, in terms of our audit overview, reporting back that there are no significant changes to our audit plan from what was communicated to council in our pre-audit communication letter back in the fall. We do kind of highlight the key elements of our audit plan in that letter that would have been received at a council meeting back then. And nothing changed from our audit plan of any significance to report here, including materiality or any of the risks that we would have documented in that letter. In terms of the audit report, it is a clean audit opinion, so we've done the work that we've needed to do in order to satisfy ourselves that the financial statements are presented fairly, and so that is the clean audit opinion you are looking for from us. And just to confirm that our audit was conducted in accordance with the applicable auditing standards that our firm and other firms in Ontario are required to follow when conducting financial statement audits. The first primary statement is the statement of financial position showing the assets, liabilities, and accumulated surplus for the town for the December 31st year end, as well as comparatives for 2024 year end. I'm showing it on screen. I apologize if it is too small for people to read. I will just highlight a few key elements, and then we'll get to some of the graphs that we cover in these meetings. So if you look at the top three lines under financial assets, they are the cash, restricted cash, and temporary investments. If you add those together, they total about 89 million. That is down from about 98.6 million the year before. The reason for that is because of the significant expenditures on capital asset additions in the year, as well as repayments of long-term debt. And so in years where you spend fairly significantly on capital asset additions, that's going to draw down your cash position. And so collectively, your cash and investments have decreased in the year by about 9.5 million or so. In terms of receivable, taxes receivable and accounts receivable both up somewhat, but within what we would expect to see. And when we get to the graph on taxes receivable, you'll see that it is a very reasonable number, although it has crept up as we've seen across many municipalities over the last 5 years or so. The investments in government business enterprises is your investment in Orangeville Hydro. That's increased because of the net income from Orangeville Hydro in the year. And so that balance has increased. And so total financial assets down largely because of the cash and investments. In terms of liabilities, you see that most of them are fairly consistent, but deferred revenue and long-term debt in particular both down. So deferred revenue is your obligatory reserve funds, your development charges, some various other grants and so on that we'll see on a future slide. So you did draw those down by a fair amount in terms of funding the capital asset additions that I mentioned. And so deferred revenue down and long-term debt down by about $7.4 million because of repayments made in the year on the debt that the municipality does have. Down at the bottom, we have the non-financial assets, most notably your tangible capital assets. So as I mentioned, fairly significant expenditures in the year, about $28 million spent on infrastructure investments and other capital asset additions in the year. So that is the reason for the increase, offset in part by about $10 million of amortization on those assets over the year. And so we'll see that on a future slide. But in total, your tangible capital assets increased by about $18 million. And as a result, then your accumulated surplus up by about $14 million. About 24 million net of the increase in your net financial assets and your non-financial assets. So getting to some of the slides, this slide shows the town's cash position as a percentage of its annual cash outflow. So all the cash that the town spends in the year as compared to your year-end cash position. And that green line is the town of Orangeville. The blue line is the comparable townships that we look at. So when we look at other municipalities, we're looking at ones that are generally approximately the same size as the town of Orangeville. And you can see that your cash position is stronger than the other municipalities in terms of their relative cash outflows to yours. That's why the blue line is below the green one in this graph. Next slide is taxes receivable. And as I mentioned earlier, we have seen across all of our clients, but also your comparative group, that the taxes receivable has increased. But your taxes receivable tend to be lower than average. So the 6.2% that we can see in 2025, it has crept up over the last few years. But again, that's very consistent with what we're seeing across all municipalities, and is still below the average of the comparator group. So I think that speaks well to your processes in terms of collections on taxes receivable. Long-term debt has traditionally been a little higher than the comparator group, but with significant repayments made over the last several years, you can see that it's dripped down and now below the average of the other municipalities that we compare the town to, at about 45% of total tax revenue. And the reason that we're doing it as a percentage of total tax revenue, as I've mentioned in years past, is just to try and normalize for the size of the municipality, or its tax revenue being kind of the primary base on which those debt repayments can be made. So that's how we adjust for the size of the municipality or the revenue in order to do so. Tangible capital assets. So this is comparing capital asset additions as a percentage of total tax revenue. The green line, again, in this case, is the town of Orangeville. The blue line is the comparator group. In this case, you can see that the town does tend to spend less than the other municipalities. I am very cautious about drawing too many inferences from that. This is not I'm not an engineer. I'm not speculating on what you should have spent. So this is not a judgment call in terms of the fact that the municipality has spent less than it should have. And in fact, when we get to another slide, I think it'll show that that is not the case. So this may just be an anomaly of your needs being less than other municipal governments of your approximate size. And this slide is the one that I am referring to in terms of the investment that you have made. So the blue bars here are your actual capital asset additions. The green bars are budget, and you typically budget a fair amount more than your actual expenditures, because projects continue and get extended. And sometimes if they get extended into a future year, it may be budgeted in both years. So this isn't, it's not really a fair comparison to compare the blue and the green bars in this case. But when you compare the blue to the yellow, yellow is your amortization, blue is your actual expenditures. You're expending well in excess of your amortization each year, and I think that speaks well to the fact that the municipality has done its best to stay on top of its infrastructure needs. So the statement of operations is the next primary statement, showing the revenues and expenses in the year, and then culminating in the annual surplus. So you can see that statement here. I will just point out a few lines. I won't go through them all. Taxation revenue up by about 5% over prior year. The fees and user charges up by about 26%, and that is coming from various cost recoveries, as well as a significant increase in some of the water sewer cost recoveries, as well as charges, and some increases in some of the other user charges as well. Grant revenues tend to increase in years where there's significant capital expenditures. There were more grant revenues recognized in the current year, particularly in relation to transportation infrastructure investments. So that's the reason for the increase in grants. And so total revenues up to just under 90 million from about 80 million the year before. Down below that, we have the expenditures by department. You can see that they're up by about 3.6 million, but still well below budget. And so regular variances we'd expect to see. Certain departments have higher or lower salaries and benefits than in the prior year. Materials costs tend to fluctuate, particularly in transportation services, with weather conditions significantly impacting things. And then your OPP contract increased in the year, and so that's part of the increase in the protection services line. So total annual surplus, about 24 million, pretty comparable to budget, but up from last year. And again, that tends to happen in years where there's significant capital asset expenditures. In terms of expenditures by department, we have kind of the pie chart showing the breakdown. Not surprisingly, protection services, transportation, and environmental services being kind of the three of the larger ones, as you would expect. And the next slide shows those same numbers, but with comparisons over the past 5 years. The statement of changes in net financial assets basically takes the surplus on the year and backs out capital asset activities, so the change in your net financial asset position. And so we can see that here, starting with the annual surplus of 24 million. When we back out the capital asset additions, amortization, changes in some of your non-financial assets, we wind up with an increase in your net financial assets of $5.6 million. So the organization's financial position in terms of liquid assets versus your liabilities has improved, despite the fact that you did invest fairly significantly in your capital asset additions as well. The last primary statement is a statement of cash flows. So this shows the changes in your cash position. I won't go through this in any great detail other than to highlight a few lines. So in the middle here, we see $25.6 million of positive cash from your operating activities. We'd expect to see that in a municipality that your operations are generating positive cash from tax revenue and other revenue sources, net of your cash expenditures. From that, then you are using that positive cash from operating activities to pay down debt. So $7.4 million of debt repayments in the year, and then $28 million of capital asset addition. So your operations are funding those. And ultimately, your cash position did decrease by about $9.6 million, as mentioned, when we compare your cash and investments together. But because of the repayments in debt and so on, your net financial position did improve despite the fact that your cash has decreased overall. So the schedule of accumulated surplus shows the breakdown of the overall accumulated surplus into various components. Your investment capital assets is your largest one by a fairly significant margin. There's various unfunded liabilities. So your long-term debt is kind of a net decrease overall in your accumulated surplus. As you pay that down, that will improve. There's other unfunded post-employment benefits and asset retirement law obligations. That's kind of your net expected costs for those obligations on the part of the municipality, your equity in Orangeville Hydro. And then we have reserves and reserve funds totaling about $89 million that make up the balance of your accumulated surplus. Not included in that accumulated surplus is your deferred revenue, which covers additional reserve funds, and specifically those that are part of your that are obligatory in nature. So your development charges, gas tax funding, other transportation grants, recreational land reserve fund, and so on. And as mentioned, you have drawn those down to some extent from about 16.7 million down to 8.7, basically to fund a lot of the capital asset expenditures incurred in the year. You did draw down some of those grants as well as your development charges reserve fund. So when we combine all of the reserves and reserve funds, though, your the municipality is still a strong financial position compared to the comparator group. 216 or 217% of total tax revenue set aside in those reserves and reserve funds. Some of them obligatory, some of them discretionary, but all of them available to be spent on future expenditures, including your infrastructure needs. And so I think that speaks well to the fact that the organization has set aside funds to fund those future expenditures on its infrastructure. So with that said, next steps, subject to your approval at this council meeting, we would then get our management representation letter signed, which allows us to issue the final signed version of the financial statements, and then ultimately submission of the financial information return to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. So with that said, I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Murray. Appreciate your presentation, and it's always very thorough. Very much appreciated. Councillor Sherwood, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Short. Going to the statement of the financial position, I noticed you made reference in your presentation about the tax receivable being $4.7 million, a slight increase. Yes, it's still lower than the average, but there doesn't seem to be anything commenting under the financial assets about the accounts receivable being over $8 million, almost double what the taxes receivable are. The accounts receivable seems like that's quite a high amount. Is that a trigger at all under your audit?
It's something we look at for sure. It's a combination of a number of things, and the reason that we don't have a graph on it is that accounts receivable can fluctuate a whole lot more, and sometimes it's less controllable by the municipality in the sense of included in that balance there are grants which you may be receiving well after kind of projects are done. There's receivables from Orangeville Hydro, there's HST rebates in there. There's a whole bunch of different things that make up that total. But it's not as easy to compare when we're talking about comparing to other municipalities because of the composition being so varied. But it's not it is a sizable number for sure, but it is not a concern from our standpoint that balance is what it is. We do look fairly closely at collectability and don't have any concerns from that standpoint. So it's really just a timing of, balances being due to the municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Through you, Your Worship. I did have dialogue back and forth with our treasurer, who gave us gave me great information back. I just wanted to know if it was a trigger as far as an audit goes, because I said, like I say, you seem to focus on the taxes receivable, which is almost half of the accounts receivable. My other question, if I could, Your Worship, is when we talk about the surplus. So if I probably would, this is going to be more directed to staff maybe when we go to the report, but so you've got the accumulated surplus of $24 million, but our operating surplus at the end of our operating budget in 2025 was actually $8 million. If I take the operating amount plus the user rate, am I doing my math right?
So there's it's hard to tease out, and this is a constant conversation between us and your finance team in terms of the tax supported surplus versus the annual surplus that we're showing in the financial statements versus the various general funds that you have, because there's the town's general fund versus the general funds of the library and BIA and so on. So the actual tax supported surplus this year, which is in note 16 to the statements, is about 4.8 million. And so that's the number that you're kind of budgeting for to kind of budget on a break even cash flow basis. each year. So that number, other than in note 16 of the financial statements, doesn't really show up elsewhere in the financial statements because we're presenting under public sector accounting standards that differ from, your budgeting for your cash flow needs to manage and maintain the municipal services and infrastructure needs. So yeah, it's a bit confusing when comparing the financial statements to your budgeting and internal reporting versus budget.
It is, because you're talking auditor talk, and I'm looking at the
Sorry about that.
politician side of it, saying, how much money did we not spend last year? And I know you talked about the operating budget being 4.9, but we still had the user rate self-funded budget of 3.6 to add to that. I think that's a question I did ask staff and didn't get a response back, so that's why maybe we'll follow up with staff again then.
Yeah, I would have to confirm that number. I don't want to misspeak, but
That's okay.
that wouldn't be a surprising number to me necessarily.
That's what I'm trying to clarify. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kind of on the same wavelength here, Councillor Sherwood, as I move into, of course, the discussion. And by the way, Mr. Short, nice to see you as always. Revenue, surplus, expenditures. And I was eyeing the pie chart that you presented in your presentation, and it really caught my eye and ear, what you said. And again, not to misspeak, but you did say it's kind of difficult to compare municipalities to municipalities, but you were talking about comparators. And so looking back at this pie chart, when I take a look at comparing other municipalities, in your expertise, in your observation, are we in alignment with other municipalities? Are we doing something maybe a little bit different? Because you did highlight 3 areas that are, in fact, primarily the drivers of the expenditures of the municipality. But are we kind of in alignment with some of the other municipalities across the province or those that you deal with?
Yeah. I mean, the ones that we deal with tend to be smaller, and that's why we use a different comparator group for this presentation to this council than we do for some of our smaller rural municipalities. But I think I would comment generally, without having exact numbers in front of me, that you're kind of in the same ballpark in terms of, being a fairly diversified municipality with kind of significant, infrastructure with transportation, protection, environmental being your kind of key drivers, as you said. Those percentages tend to be in the same ballpark for municipalities of your size, yes.
Great, thank you. That's all I have, Your Worship. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. I do understand that Ms. Braun is online as well and can maybe provide some more insight onto your questions, Councillor Sherwood. So Ms. Braun, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Post. So as Murray indicated, note 16 was our attempt this year to make that clarification between the budgeted operating budget surplus and the financial statement surplus. I'm sure you're aware that when we budget, we don't budget for amortization, but we do budget for reserve contributions for capital purposes. So that's one of the two differences, or that's one of the differences. And you were right, Councillor Sherwood, that if you look at note 16, I'm not sure if you have it in front of you, but one of the line items in that schedule is net transfers to reserves and discretionary reserve funds. That is, a portion of that is the user rate reserve. So what this schedule is attempting to do is just show the property tax supported surplus. If it would make more sense for us in the future to show property tax and user rate surpluses as maybe some bottom lines on that schedule, we can do that as well and show for complete transparency how the two statements kind of reconcile to each other. Does that help, Councillor Sherwood?
Councillor Sherwood, go ahead.
Through you. Yes, it does. I know I would like to see that, but that, of course, is a decision amongst the rest of my colleagues. I like to see kind of what I call line by line. So
okay,
that's a request that I would like to see if I have support of the my rest of my colleagues.
Yes, we can. So we can take that back.
We got head nods.
Okay, we can take that back.
I don't know how formal this has to be, but thank you very much for clarifying that.
Yep.
Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Was there any additional questions for the auditor? Deputy Mayor?
Just over so quickly, I would never get in the way of Councillor Sherwood and the financials. So I would defer to you on a lot of these things, although I do consider myself an amateur economist myself. The line-by-line piece, I'm interested in that too, but it also got us into trouble in the past because we spent unnecessary time on things that were operational and whatnot. So I just wonder if maybe it's a discussion, like perhaps the treasurer and team could present to us at some point the benefits and the the liabilities of doing it in that way. But I just remember kind of year one on my time, and it was sort of silly season as we went through it, and we got through a bunch of things. Anyway, so that was my one point. And then the other point is that whenever I'm looking at these audits, I always like to read, and I think Councillor Sherwood was one of the discussions you and I had many years ago, but I read the beginning, and the beginning basically says, is the entity in good shape or not? And when I see that we are, that's sort of check one, which is great, because we've seen other financial reports from different entities where they're not, and that's concerning. So I'm excited about that. And then I love the graphs that go through and try its best to compare to other municipalities. And I would say this is the best I've ever felt, and this is year 8 for me, about the situation that we're in as a town from a financial perspective. So I think as a group, we've all done really well to get to where we are. Are we perfect? Could we improve further? Absolutely. But I'm quite thrilled to see the report that's presented in the way that you've done it today, Mr. Short. And I think we should all be proud of where we've gotten to here. So I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you very much. Was there any other questions or comments from council? I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Short, for being here. We do have a recommendation that report CPS 2026-24, the 2025 audited financial statements be received, and that council approve the 2025 audited consolidated financial statements of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville and the statements of trust funds as presented, and that council direct staff to distribute the surplus in accordance with the corporate surplus allocation and deficit funding policy, and that council amend the 2026 to 2035 10-year capital plan to increase the expenditure budget for project number 26068, which is the 2026 sidewalk program, by $500,000 in 2026 to be funded from the general capital reserve. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Stevens, all in favor. And that is carried. Okay, thank you very much again, Mr. Short. We appreciate that. We will move into our 2026 community grant allocations. We do have a presentation from Jennifer Payne. Come on up, Jennifer.
Thank you. Good evening.
Got everything ready for you. Yep, the floor is yours.
Say that again. Good evening, Mayor Post, members of council and staff. Thank you for having me this evening. It's my delight to be bringing you some good news, some more good news on the financial front. Good job on the money, by the way. So my name is Jennifer Payne. I'm Executive Director of Headwaters Communities in Action, and it's my pleasure to bring you the 2026 Community Grants Report for the Town of Orangeville. So first, I'll start with a little bit of background and introduction for those who are not familiar with who we are and how we operate and what our role is with respect to the town's grant program. I want to give a big thank you, first of all, to Town Council and staff for supporting this important program. It really activates a lot of good works in our community and a lot of good benefits for the residents of Orangeville. I want to thank the assessment team who came together under difficult circumstances to make some tough decisions. Maybe less tough than other years, which you'll see in the numbers, but they gave a lot of rigor to the process of assessing each and every application, and I just wanted to give a little shout out to them. And then a big thank you to all the applicants. So these are all excellent members of the community who offer services, programs, events, and culturally enriching activities for the residents of the town. So very many amazing organizations doing good work. So we're Headwaters Communities in Action, or HCIA. We're a registered charity and community backbone organization. We've been around since 2004. We support a number of different projects across Dufferin and Caledon that serve a long-term vision of community well-being. We do research, education, engagement, and action on shared community priorities. We collect those in a number of different ways. And we prioritize collaboration, connection, and community conversations. Our vision is people coming together to shape a thriving community, and participating in this project is certainly a big part of that. So a little overview of the general timeline for the Community Grants Program. We start with the application intake between March 1st and 31st this year. So that's where town staff and well, me, we discuss the process, the timeline, the available funds, and any updates to the process that might be necessary. Then the town launches the program publicly. We collect the applications. This year we used a software called Good Grants to receive the applications, and that made our process a little smoother on the assessment side. Then the second step is the assessment and report stage, and that's where we take the applications and we do scoring between April 7th and 21st this year, and we submit the report for your council package by May 5th. We convene the assessment team, and I'll talk a little bit more about our internal process on the next slide, but each member of the scoring team scores separately, and then we come together for a calibration meeting to come to final recommendations for the report. Then the report is prepared showing our process as well as rationale for any decisions or suggestions that are made. Then council decision is today, thank you very much, and hopefully there's agreement, and then the funds will be distributed in early June. Then the next activity is to prepare for the next round. So once fall comes around, we start talking again about what the next process needs to be and any reporting requirements that the town may decide to ask for of applicants, and that's all determined by the town staff. Thank you. So internally with HCIA, once the applications are handed over to us, we recruit an assessment team, which consists of 5 to 8 members of the Orangeville community. We hold an orientation session to familiarize everybody with the process, and then we have our kickoff meeting, and everybody signs a terms of reference to ensure that we're all following the same rules. Then the individual scoring happens over a 2-week period. We get together to amalgamate those scores. We have a group discussion to calibrate. We prepare the report, and then I come to see you to present that report. Thank you. We use a holistic scoring approach, and there are certain aspects of the assessment that the applicants have control over and certain aspects that they do not. So what the applicants have control over are things like their own eligibility, so they check the criteria and make sure that they're eligible, demonstrating the benefit to the Orangeville residents, making sure the plan and the budget align and make sense for what they're asking to do and the amount they're requesting, and then that their project aligns with strategic priorities of the town. That's what they can control within the content of the application. What they don't get to see is the environment that's influencing the recommendations as well, which includes the amount of funds available, the organization, the feasibility of partial funding, the competitive field of other applications and how they compare to each other, and then the mix of project types. So if we're looking across the spectrum of applications, we want to make sure we're not putting all the funds toward one cause, for example. So, drum roll, please. We received a total of 21 applications, which is a little bit lower than usual. This is our 3rd year doing it, and usually you're a little bit higher than this, but we recommended 18 of those. So we found 3 of them were not we're not able to justify recommending them for funding for various reasons, and we'll talk about those. The total funds requested was $128,500, and the funds available for 2026 was $78,000. And that was up from typical, we usually have $58,000 to work with, so somebody searched the couch cushions and found another $20,000. So that was really wonderful to be able to work with. It gave us a lot more yeses to say this round. So thank you. The highlights are, we received 21 applications. Once again, we recommended 12 of them in full, which was nice to be able to do with the available funds. We recommended 6 at partial funding, and then 3 declines. There are many long-serving Orangeville-based organizations and a few new initiatives that are looking to get established, which is nice to see a mix of those. a good mix of beneficial initiatives, subpopulations served, and areas of focus to benefit Orangeville residents. And those are listed there. I didn't start my timer. So the recommended grants include Art Lunch Organization, Bethel Hospice Foundation, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Caledon Dufferin Victim Services, Dufferin Film Festival, Dufferin Parent Support Network, Engineers of Tomorrow, Orangeville and District Horticultural Society, Orangeville Headwaters Minor Baseball, Orangeville and District Seniors Center, Orangeville Blues and Jazz Festival, Orangeville Legion, Orangeville Music Theater, Orangeville Northman Minor Lacrosse, Scientists in School, Terry Fox Foundation Orangeville Community Run, the Optimist Club of Orangeville, Tweedsmuir Memorial Presbyterian Church. So judging by all the times I've said Orangeville, we took the additional direction of making sure that we gave preference to organizations that were based in Orangeville, not only serving Orangeville residents, so I hope you see that reflected in the recommendations here. So here's the divvying up of the pie, as it were. We're not necessarily looking for an even distribution. It's really a function of what the applicants asked for, but this is how it plays out in terms of the full amount of funding. So a few suggestions for next year. Launch the application window a little bit earlier. We did have some people inquiring as to when it would open, when are the grants open, when are the grants open. So sometimes it's beneficial to have some information out a little bit in advance to let people know. I realize it's a function of when the budget gets approved, just to make sure that there is a grants fund. So that was just something that we observed with this round. Encourage follow-up with applicants. So I do realize that there may be some questions about why partial funding or why declines. So I'm happy to answer any questions that applicants may have. It's good to continue offering FAQs or information on the website, as well as information sessions when time allows. And then further emphasis on ways to strengthen their applications, really underscoring all those criteria. Thank you. So thank you again for involving us in partnering with us in this important work. We're really honored. It's a highlight of our year to see all the great work that's being proposed in the community and to be able to facilitate funding some of that. So I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, we'll start with some questions. Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Payne, always a pleasure to have you here. And of course, some celebration is in order once those various groups have been notified. And I think that through this venue, they obviously have been in some respect. You caught my ear on a couple of things, one of which you've already answered, but again, I'm going to just pose the question. You had indicated that there was a lower number of applicants this year than previous years. What do you attribute that to?
Through you, Mayor Post, it's really hard to say. Sometimes it's certainly in previous years where we have had 4 times the amount of funds available in requests. That can be discouraging for how many times we need to decline applications or give partial funding. So that may be a reason. It's possible that the funding climate has changed also, some organizations, and I'm just hearing this anecdotally, I don't have data to support this, but that some organizations have had better luck with other funding sources, either through donations or other grant programs. So those are a couple of potential options. I have not reached out to those who have not applied. Mm-hmm. That is a possibility, to see who applied in previous years and maybe see if there's a reason.
Do you, through this process, through you, Your Worship, through this process, do you end up asking the successful applicants on why their application, in their opinion, was successful? Was it, the process of them going through the exercise of completing the application? Maybe they've done so before. Maybe they're actually, quite good at doing this. That could be one of the reasons. Is that something that has been done from a best practice perspective?
Through you, Mayor Post, we don't follow up with successful candidates to let them know why it was successful. This year, we did add some additional commentary in the report. We realize not everyone maybe reads the report if they are applicants, but I do encourage everybody to do that because we did try to provide a bit more description particularly for the ones who were suggested for partial funding or who were recommended to decline.
Right.
Because that's important information for them to know for next time. But we typically don't follow up with successful candidates. Yeah.
And last comment, if I may, having spoken to some prospective applicants, maybe for this next iteration in 2027, some aren't necessarily under that umbrella of being a full nonprofit or whatever it is. And so I noticed in your report you had indicated some alignment, and it may have been more of a response to some of those that did not successfully receive funding. Is there an example, or would that be just something about the communication that might be able to be provided to prospective applicants?
So absolutely. It's very, very important that if you are not a registered nonprofit or charity, that you partner with one. So that's the straightest example I could give. Okay. There was at least one that was recommended to decline because they were not registered and were not partnered with one. So, and it doesn't preclude that partner from applying also for their own project. So it's really mainly to make sure we have a credible fiscal steward for the project to receive the funds. So that's the main thing, is make sure you're eligible, because that's a very quick no, unfortunately. So other than that, just making sure to really drill home the benefit to the Orangeville residents, and that your plan and budget are detailed and make sense.
Great, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. I'm not seeing any other questions from council at this time, so we're good. Council will be dealing with item 12.2.2.2 in 3 parts in order to address the declared conflicts that we had at the beginning of the meeting. So the first recommendation is that report CPS 2026-29, the 2026 community grants, be received, and that council approve distribution of the 2026 community grant budgeted funds as recommended by Headwaters Communities in Action from the one-time community grants budget, excluding the allocations to Bethel Hospice and the Optimist Club of Orangeville. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Stevens and Councillor McIntosh. All in favor? And that is carried. If I could have Councillor Prendergast step out. Yeah, go ahead. So the recommendation here is that council approve the allocation to Bethel Hospice from the 2026 community grant budgeted funds as recommended by the Headwaters Communities in Action from the one-time community grants budget. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that one's carried. If you can switch spots, Deputy Mayor, with Councillor Prendergast. Okay, so the next recommendation is that council approve the allocation to the Optimist Club of Orangeville from the 2026 community grant budgeted funds as recommended by Headwaters Communities in Action from the one-time community grants budget. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Prendergast and Councillor Andrews, all in favor? And that is carried. We'll get Deputy Mayor back. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for all the work that you put into this. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so up next we will move into the consent agenda. The recommendation here is that all consent agenda items for the current council meeting listed under 13.1 staff reports, 13.2 correspondence, and 13.3 committee board minutes be received or approved as presented, with the exception of the items removed for individual consideration. So far I have heard that 13.1.2, the annual statement of development charges, and 13.1.5, the Orangeville Highlands Phase 2, have been removed. Was there any other additional items? Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder for those then? Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? And that is carried. So 13.1.2 is the annual statement of development charges. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor Post. I want to just take a moment to thank the staff who are involved with this report. Again, another example of being thorough with exceptional expertise. I did have the opportunity of posing some questions to our Madam Treasurer, and I know that she's online, but just for the sake of the general public, I wanted to just take a moment to highlight some thoughts to this. And the reason I'm doing so is kind of putting on my economic development hat, because when we take a look at activities that are happening in other municipalities, when I read the report, and I'll just highlight a comment that I had made, that There are challenges facing a number of municipalities regarding the timely flow of development charges. And of course, it connects with our development charge reserve fund. And because of that, I thought, I had to pose, some thoughts to the treasurer. And again, I want to thank her and the team for the response that you provided, because it really was thorough. It gave me some comfort and understanding, but I'm also looking at what I call the bigger picture issue, is really the flow of those DCs in comparison to some of the expectations that we have had regarding where those DCs come from. So as an example, we have a variety of projects that are on the book. Some are in the defined queue, as Ms. Braun had used the terminology, and we're very, very much familiar with what that means, but it also means that we're not getting the flow of development charges for certain initiatives, and thus the reserves themselves are being kind of pressured into how do we move this ahead without impacting the taxpayer. So I'm wondering if, Ms. Braun, if you might be able to just give us, a very quick synopsis of the question that I had posed earlier today, just to provide other members of council some comfort of where you're coming from, and the general public who may be viewing this council meeting this evening. Thanks, Councillor Andrews. Ms. Braun?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Post. So as we know, development charges have been, collections have been quite low over the past, I'll say 18 to 24 months. The town, in its wisdom, has already embarked on a number of growth-related capital projects, some of which were debt funded, the wastewater treatment plant being one. Those growth-related projects are put in place so that they allow future growth to occur. When we spend the money that we've already received in our reserves, in our development charge reserves, we see that our reserves have declined, and the hope or the expectation is, as development continues to occur, it replenishes those reserves. In the absence of seeing that development activity, I'll say, at a reasonably confident level, there are a few actions that town staff can take to mitigate some of those risks. Mm-hmm. The first being, we should really be reviewing our capital program, and to the extent that certain growth-related projects haven't proceeded yet, we may decide to put a pause on them until we start to see development charge collections resume their normal activity. Another mitigation strategy, where we've already, like I said, debt financed some of those wastewater growth-related expenditures. We have those debt servicing costs that we will need to pay off they're obligatory. We could, if we didn't have enough in our development charge reserves, we could temporarily borrow from other town reserves, such as tax-supported capital reserves, mm-hmm. or the user rate reserves, until we get the collections, and then we refund those reserves. It's not just paying it off out of our own source reserves. We would have to replenish the DC reserves. And then the final action, I guess, would be, if we don't have enough money in reserves and we can't stop all of the growth-related projects from proceeding because they're required, we may have to increase taxes and user rates to cover those costs, particularly the debt servicing costs. Those are the highest risk because we can't not pay them. So those are the three options on a short-term basis that we have. On a longer-term basis, we would have to look at take a longer view, look at our master plans, look at all of those growth-related projects, and maybe revisit them and see and pre-prioritize which ones need to proceed ahead of others. Does that help, Councillor
It
Andrews? I hope
does
that-
tremendously, Madam Treasurer. And again, I do want to compliment you for your expertise and your view on this. I think where I wanted to go, and again, in this forum that we have in our particular elected role, we're always kind of looking not only at the present date, but we're also looking long-term. And I look at not only the last option that you spoke about, which is the one I really don't want to talk about, which is putting, some of these decisions on the back of the taxpayer. I think this is a timely point that you have in your report under conclusion, where staff will be coming with some future recommendations to council for consideration. And sometimes we have to look outside the box as opposed to how we have traditionally done things. And I know, and again, I hate to say this, that there are other municipalities that have taken some significant risks to think outside that box to mitigate some of those things that are happening in our world right now. We know that we have, one of the agenda items, consent agenda items, is in fact being discussed because of some potential delays, and we have other things that we cannot forecast in the magical crystal ball. So I think that this is timely, and I don't know if this will happen during this term. Maybe it will happen for whomever else is fortunate to be in these seats when it maybe comes back to council. But I look forward to the recommendations from your staff. And again, I think the final point I wanted to share with you, Madam Treasurer, I really appreciate the detail that has been provided, but also the clarity that was really necessary, not only for myself, but others who may have other questions pertaining to this. But again, I truly appreciate all that you and your team does for the municipality. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thank you. I was going to call you Warden. That's the wrong room. Mayor Post. I just wanted to offer affirmation of what Councillor Andrews is saying. And the time is now for us to start to consider as a council team what incentives we are going to offer to incite or incent people, not incite people. We don't want to incite people. We want to incent people to bring their businesses and their projects to town. And we're going to be left behind if we don't do that. So I think that's for next term, but that's where my head's at. And I think that's what you're saying. Okay, great. So we're on exactly the same page, and that's what I think we should be urgently doing.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is there any other questions or comments on this item? The recommendation is that report CPS 2025-25 annual statement of development charges be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Andrews and Councillor Prendergast, all in favor? And that is carried. Our next item is the Orangeville Highlands Phase 2 Plan of Subdivision Draft Approval Extension. Councillor Sherwood, you had pulled this one. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. I'm having a real difficult time approving this request, and I'm going to give a bit of an explanation. There's been 541 allocated dwellings sitting on the books for 16 years. I'm not confident that this developer will even be developing in 2028, and I'll tell you why. In 2010, they made the application, and we got excited because there's 541 dwellings sitting there. They appealed to the Land Tribunal 2017. They were given to 2021. What did they do? They asked for a 3-year extension. They got an extension to 2024. Then they came to council in 2024. I believe they asked for another 3-year extension, and staff recommended a 2-year extension. Brought it to June 2026. So here we are. Now they are back at us again, asking for another extension to 2028. I have a very difficult time sitting here thinking that we're holding a placeholder for 541 dwellings on a developer that is continually being granted extensions. I would like to see these to be allocated to a developer that is going to develop and bring dwellings to our property. I have a very hard time, only because Mr. Ward might be able to correct me, but it seems to me they asked for a 3-year extension in 2024. You recommended 2. So in actual fact, they're getting their way. So 2 years ago, they wanted 3 years. Now they're asking for another 2 years. I'm just not happy with this developer right now. I'm sorry. And I do not have the confidence that they're going to be going forward in 2028. Maybe, Mr. Ward, you can provide a little bit more insight. If I'm off track, I'm open to being put back on the right track.
Mr. Ward, can I turn it over to you?
Sure, thank you. Oh, that's real loud. Thank you, Mayor Post, and through you to Councillor Sherwood. So thank you for the recap of the history. You're quite right. It's not untypical for a subdivision of this magnitude to have a multi-year history related to it. This file was quite complicated. It had a lot of community opposition, and hence the appeal on a non-decision basis in 2017 brought the matter to the tribunal. So fast forward to 2018, we had a public meeting, well attended, lots of concerns, and we were able to work with the developer towards what I would characterize as a good development plan. It ticks all the boxes from the official plan standpoint. The lands have been long designated for a medium density development in the area. So this subdivision approval is very much in keeping with that. Now, having said that, it was draft approved in 2021. It actually was a decision by the Ontario Land Tribunal. That decision granted a 3-year time period. It's a very standard time period for draft approval decisions. So they have 3 years to satisfy the conditions, and which brought them to 2024. In that time, they had worked on clearing many of the conditions, getting the engineering design underway. That's a major hurdle for these developments. When you have draft approval, it's sort of a proof of concept. And then the real work begins in terms of doing the detailed design and figuring out how the site is going to be engineered and constructed. So they embarked upon that work. They asked for, I don't remember if it was a 3-year extension. It may have been that was the request, but ultimately 2 years were granted. And we know, of course, in that time, there's been a lot of economic turbulence in the real estate market. That may be some factors as to their construction timing, but they've still gone forward with the engineering design dialogue with town staff. As you see in the staff report, they're now at a final stage of that. They're ready to go forward by their indication to actually start earthworks this summer. We'll see if that materializes, but they do have what I would characterize as concrete plans to start construction in the near future. Having said that, we feel a 2-year extension is appropriate. It's not too dissimilar for what the other subdivision developments we've encountered in the town, particularly the Edgewood development that we've recently gone forward with there. So we feel this extension is appropriate given the circumstances.
Councillor Sherwood, do you have a follow-up, or are you good? Okay, Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you. Mayor Post, through you. My question is about the land now, just as it is. If we are going to extend for 4 years, that's a very big meadow, and the town has been cutting it. But there's milkweed, there's all kind of pollinator flowers that are there. And I've heard from a couple residents, and I was just wondering if that could be a consideration. If it's going to just be sitting vacant for 4 years, maybe that could be something we could look at if it becomes more naturalized. Or 2 years? I'm so sorry. I apologize, 2 years. It was just something that was brought to my attention earlier. And there's a lot of wildlife that crosses Hanson there. And if we are redoing the road, perhaps some kind of eco-tunnel could be considered from the wetland that's on the other corner that is adjacent to kind of the fish and chip shop, like by the Tim Hortons there. So it was just I rescued a snapping turtle the other day crossing the road. And I was very lucky that people stopped, but since we are going to be working there, I know it's a bit after the plan has come through, but maybe that's something we can do infrastructurally. I was just going to ask about water allocation too, pardon me. Or should we be concerned that we've already allocated that much water? 541 units for water. And if they're not being built and we're at a situation where we're almost at capacity, is that something we should be thinking about as council?
Mr. Ward, do you want to start?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor Prendergast. That's the water allocation's long time been documented and in our inventories and records for water allocation. We don't see a capacity issue there. We've reconciled that against even recent developments that have come forward, also in a similar state of, having shovel-ready approvals, but unfortunately not pulling the trigger on building permits, so to speak. All in all, we're still in a good state, I think, in the capacity circumstances. It's, it is getting close, but we've been kind of monitoring that quite carefully.
Mr. Koslek?
Through your worship, I just wanted to
mention a little bit about the water capacity. When we did the water allocation, there was capacity for approximately 2,000 additional units. So we are monitoring it, and a lot of these developments were accounted for when we did the allocation already. So we don't expect it to be a major issue. They won't come overnight. It'll probably take 3 years for it all to be built out, so I don't expect that an issue for servicing.
Thank you, Mr. Koslek. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Worship. Question for Mr. Ward. If we were to turn this down, which I'm not necessarily agreeing with, but if we did turn this down, what would be the downside to that?
Mr. Ward?
Through you, Mayor Post, to Councillor McIntosh. I think what it does is it basically terminates a very long-standing draft approval status. And I know under the provincial policy framework, municipalities are supposed to have sort of a ready inventory available of draft-approved land to sort of provide for future growth opportunity within a certain build-out horizon. Having draft-approved plans really helps achieve that inventory of available lands for development. So I think not only are you kind of jeopardizing that, you're also again, you're canceling or terminating a very important planning tool and essentially making them start the process over, contrary to a well-rooted official plan policy framework that exists for those lands.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McIntosh. Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment on Councillor Sherwood's commentary. I do share her frustration with the project. I mean, it's a shame that it's going on this long. It's too bad. Council, as you sit here, we do deal with some developers who don't make us necessarily feel good about the decisions that we've made to go forward with them. However, in this instance, I would suggest we don't necessarily know that. As I think back, I didn't love the amount of houses that we put in here, but we went down a path together, and this is where we've ended up. I actually have sympathy for the developer in this situation. The Ontario situation in particular is anemic at this spot. Like, there's developers in Toronto that are buying up condo buildings that they can't sell. The development business in particular has dried right up. We have somebody in Veterans Way who is building homes and allowing us to put a road in because I honestly think it's the goodness of their hearts. They don't need to be doing that and opening Hanson Boulevard. They just knew it was a priority of this council to have that road opened. So in this instance, I feel like we need to give these people grace and allow them the time to go. The amount of sunk cost that's in a development and the elongated period of time that it takes to get an ROI is huge. And if they go now, they actually may not make profit, which I know is a dirty word to some of us, but why else would they do it if they weren't going to make profit? So I think, for me, I'm in favor. 2 years isn't that much longer. When Councillor Prendergast said 4, I thought, oh my goodness. But I think it's just 2. That's not that far away, and hopefully our economy will be in much better shape at that time. And at that time, if we get another one of these, I will be shoulder to shoulder with you, Councillor Sherwood, and say, oh my goodness, like this has gone on long enough. But today, I think we need to give some grace and try and help these people out a little bit.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Andrews?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. A very similar tone to Deputy Mayor Taylor. I certainly understand Councillor Sherwood's frustration. Putting on another hat, which is that of the Affordable Housing Task Force, I don't want to lose potential inventory that will be a variety of different housing styles and, of course, price points. I understand where we are with the development world, the risk that's involved with this, but I know it's been a lengthy journey. And, for those of us that remember some of those town halls, not in this forum, but in other contexts in our community, I'm in full favor of supporting this as much as it's, a painful 2-year wait. I'm encouraged by what the report highlights is that this summer the developer expects to begin site earthworks. As much as Mr. Ward had indicated, that is, most likely in the cards. If something happens. But I'm encouraged by what I see here. Frequently I am, since we filed the report back in late October, November of 2025, I'm still contacted by members of our community. What are we doing about affordable housing, whatever it's defined as being in our community? And we are doing something about it, but I think that we could probably expedite it, but it's a matter of who we partner with, who is going to actually take the risk financially to put that investment into place and develop some form of whatever it is defined as being as housing. So I'm in full support of this, and I'm encouraged by the timeline that has been presented in this report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Andrews. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any. The recommendation is that report INS 2026-36, Orangeville Highlands Phase 2 Plan of Subdivision Draft Approval Extension be received, and that a 2-year extension of draft approval for the Orangeville Highlands Phase 2 Plan of Subdivision be approved subject to the conditions of draft approval as enclosed in attachment number 2 to this report with a new lapsing date of June 8th, 2028. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Andrews, all in favor. And those opposed? Just Councillor Sherwood is opposed. Thank you very much. Okay, so next we will move on to notice of motion prior to meeting. Councillor Sherwood, you did submit a notice of motion prior to meeting. I will turn it to you to speak to.
Yes, Your Worship, it's rather long, so do you want me to just do a quick recap, actually? If you look at our information item, you'll see that 2 other municipalities as well have asked for an extension on the non-designated heritage register. The government had originally slated to have it removed on January 1st, 2026. Many of us lobbied to ask for a 5-year extension. The government provided a 2-year extension, which means that they're going to fall off the registry on January 1st of 2027. And so my motion is to lobby with the government to ask to reconsider giving us a further extension so we could have more time to look at our register to see who we want to designate. So we're looking for at least hopefully an extension to 2030.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. I've got a seconder in Councillor McIntosh. And if you just want to turn off your mic for a second, Deputy Mayor Taylor has a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess my question is, a few comments and then a question. I'll go question first. How are you going to do this? Is this something that you will author, or are you going to ask town staff to do it? And then if I could, I'll give my commentary and I'll turn it to you. But this report, this notice of motion, so first of all, it's not lost on me the amount of work that the Heritage Committee does. And the way that this is framed even makes it more obvious to me the amount of work the Heritage Committee does. So I'm very grateful for that. And I just wanted to compliment you on the thoughtfulness of the notice of motion, and it's my pleasure to support this. And I think the work that's being done here is great. So to go back to the question, are you going to do that? Is town staff going to do that? Are you going to ask our letter writing fiend to my left to do that? Who will do that?
You shut off your mic there. Okay. Councillor Sherwood, go ahead.
So I believe the procedure usually is through the clerk's department that they send out that motion similar to what we have in our information packages. And those motions will be supported by other municipalities as we are doing, and they'll be sent to the appropriate ministries and MPs and whatever. So I don't think we need to go to the letter writing at this point. I think the procedure, and if the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but usually it just goes that way. They will hear us. They will know our concerns. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Was there any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, all in favor? And that's carried. Was there any notices of motion that anyone would like to put forward at today's meeting? Okay, not seeing any. We will move into announcements. Was there any announcements? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just 2 quick. I wanted to identify the Sustainable Orangeville crew for their sapling distribution on Saturday. Truly a wonderful success story. In the pouring rain, there were a number of residents who came and some who I think weren't able to come, but I guess they were able to contact through Councillor Pendergrass a connection to getting the distribution of saplings and bushes and things like that. And it was just a real delight to speak with those that were distributing those items for our community to increase our tree canopy. The other is just, again, a reminder. I did this at our previous council meeting, but this is the Alzheimer's Walk for Dufferin County, primarily the Alzheimer's Society of Dufferin County, this Sunday, May 31st at Island Lake. Registration begins at 9. We'll be getting the walk at 10, and I believe Mayor Post is coming, and I'll be there as the walk ambassador, and anybody else from our community who can make it out would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know how Councillor Andrews beats me every time, but I thought I was quick this time. Just two quick announcements. June the 3rd at 11:30, we have a seniors lunch at the Alder Arena. I believe there is still some tickets left if anybody's interested. Also on June 20th, the Seniors Committee will be at the Orangeville Farmers Market. We'll have a booth there and we'll be handing out information and stuff like that. So for seniors. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh. Was there any other announcements? Okay. Oh, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm just going to say that summer is coming. Believe it or not, one way or another, I think it's coming. And now might be the time that you want to consider putting your little children in some Theatre Orangeville camps. They've got some great camps coming up, and it's a perfect way for our young people to develop some theatre skills and get creative. So if you're interested, please go on the Theatre Orangeville website and get your kiddies signed up for some exciting theatrical camps.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sherwood. If there's no further announcements, we'll move into bylaws. The recommendation is that all bylaws for the current council meeting listed under item 17 be read 3 times and finally passed, subject to section 284-11 of the Municipal Act. We do have a bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of taxes required for the town of Orangeville for the year 2026 and for the collection of the County of Dufferin and education taxes, as well as our confirming bylaw. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Prendergast and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? And that is carried. And a motion to adjourn, Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens, all in favor. And that is carried. Thank you for joining us this evening.